What would you do if you found out your own father was cheating? Not only did Richard cheat, but he also had a child outside of marriage. What is still vigorous for his age. As a modern woman, I had to give him the full package of consequences for a cheater. My name is Chloe, and I'm an amateur unboxing vlogger, often buying new gadgets to review. That day, I had no choice but to pick up my phone and get to work. I opened the first package, and inside was a breast pump, the kind used for breastfeeding, and it looked quite high-end from the packaging. What the heck? I stared at the camera, utterly baffled. I hadn't ordered anything like this. I checked the recipient's name and realized it was Richard's package. At that moment, I didn't think anything was wrong, but just as Richard walked in the door after work and saw me holding the breast pump, he lunged forward and snatched it back, startling my cat with his sudden movement. He probably realized his reaction was a bit over the top, so he stuffed it into his arms and explained that it was a gift for a colleague's grandchild, and he was afraid I'd dirty it. I petted the cat, then turned back to continue unboxing as if nothing had happened. But an alarm had already gone off in my head. As a 53-year-old insurance work executive, he rarely got this nervous. More importantly, if it was a gift for a colleague's grandchild, it would be baby supplies, not a breast pump, which is for new mothers. So he was lying. Now Eleanor was cooking, and Richard was playing on his phone. I was trying to figure out how to check Richard's phone. After all, in the digital age, that's the quickest way to uncover someone's secret. But at home, he guarded his phone like a hawk. After some thought, I picked up a freshly unboxed hand cream and walked over to Richard. Noticing him locking his phone and guarding it, I calmly squeezed out a huge dollop of hand cream onto his hand. "Dad, try this hand cream. Is it moisturizing enough?" Richard held up his hands, processing the glob of cream. It's pretty moisturizing, but you squeezed out too much." "Haha, I did it on purpose." I smiled and unscrewed a bottle of juice. As Richard unlocked his phone, ready to play, I took a big gulp, then sneezed right at him, spraying juice all over his head and face. "Oops, still on purpose. I'm so sorry, Dad," I choked. "This won't wipe clean. Why don't you go wash up?" I coughed, apologizing profusely while wiping Richard's face with a tissue. Richard grunted in disgust, then got up and went to the bathroom. His phone was left on the sofa. I picked it up and held it to the light. On the dark screen, the grease from the hand cream clearly outlined the unlock pattern. With a gentle swipe, the screen lit up. The water heater running loudly meant Richard was probably washing his hair, so I had some time. I opened the only shopping app on his phone, but there was no purchase record for a breast pump in his orders. Then I opened his banking app transaction history. And there they were, a stack of suggestive numbers glaring at me. Men probably never consider how conspicuous such numbers look in a normal transaction history. For several years in a row, Richard had been transferring money to a woman named Tiffany, while my mom had only a few sparse transactions, none exceeding $200. Sure enough, jerks exist everywhere, regardless of region or age. I silently cursed, and just as I was about to tap into the chat history, I heard the water heater stopped running. Richard was done washing up, and my heart pounded. I stared at the bathroom door, which could open at any moment. Screams and accusations clamored in my mind, but I finally suppressed my rage and quietly put the phone back. I looked up at Eleanor, busy in the kitchen. Did she know about this? If she didn't, my rash revelation would cause her immense pain. If she did, how would she cope after I exposed it? At dinner, I had no appetite. Looking at Richard's sagging cheeks, I felt ashamed. He didn't notice my gaze. He quickly finished his meal, pushed aside his dishes and cutlery, and stood up, putting on his jacket. "I'm going for a walk." Evening strolls were a habit he'd maintained for years. I watched him pick up that breast pump and change his shoes before heading out. Click. In a flash, those tiny clues seamlessly clicked into place in my mind, forming a larger, more terrible suspicion. "Mom, I have to go to work for something." I quickly got up, put on my clothes and shoes, and then shut Eleanor's admonitions behind the door. That suspicion was too terrifying. I had to know if it was true. The winter night in the north was freezing. My father symbolically walked a circle around the neighborhood, then quickly approached the security gate of the adjacent neighborhood, pulled out his key, swiped it open, and walked in. The automatically closing iron gate blocked me, who was maintaining a tracking distance. Seeing the parking garage entrance not far from the security gate, I suddenly remembered what my brother Ethan had said. In any neighborhood with a parking garage, these security gates are just for show. After exiting the garage door within the neighborhood, Richard's figure disappeared into a building entrance. I cautiously followed. The elevator was stopped on the 8th floor. There were 2 apartments on the 8th floor, and one of the doors had a blue ribbon tied to it. Everything aligned perfectly. All I needed to do was go up and knock on the door, and all my questions would be answered. But I chickened out. As a daughter, I instantly understood the psychology of wives in social news who repeatedly endured their husband's infidelity. It's probably that when you realize the happiness you've relied on is just a crumbling illusion, your first reaction is weakness. I was the same. Even if this home was crumbling, I didn't want it to collapse. I sat down in the dark stairwell, considering all sorts of hypotheses. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe Richard wasn't cheating. But there was no maybe. 3 hours later, I heard the sound of a door opening. It opened. I extended my phone with video recording, and with the aid of the angle, it clearly showed my father and a woman. He was carefully transferring something he was holding to the woman. "Leo, Daddy's leaving. Go to Mommy and sleep." It was a child. My mind buzzed. Before I could react, a soft voice drifted into my ears. "Boo-hoo, our Leo doesn't want Daddy to go. Oh, it's the weekend tomorrow. I'll come pick him up early then." My father pressed the elevator button. "Buy things, pay attention, don't send them to that address again." The elevator closed and went down, and I sat alone in the dark stairwell for a long time, digesting the information. Not only did Richard cheat, but he also had a child outside of marriage. That meant this woman knew Richard had a family, and the breast pump was accidentally mailed to my house by him. Accident, my foot. It's a provocation, so why play innocent? Daring to have a child outside of marriage. He must be determined to go all the way. After all, for some women who don't follow the right path, lack a means of livelihood, and have a bit of charm, a 7-figure executive like Richard is a real catch. But Dad, you should understand the principle of self-reflection and discipline. At your age, making your life a melodrama and embarrassing the whole family. Are you out of your mind? That evening I couldn't sleep. I frantically searched Google. What to do when father cheats? Some said not to interfere. Others said it depended on whether the family could withstand the storm. I kept reading until my eyes were dry and tired. Then I drifted off to sleep, only to start dreaming. One moment, Richard was divorcing Eleanor, who was crying heartbroken. The next, I dreamt of the mistress showing up with the child. The next morning at breakfast, Mom seemed in a good mood, busying herself telling me to call my brother, saying she'd bought meat and vegetables that morning. And since it was Christmas dinner, we'd have roasted ribs for lunch. Richard across the table said, "Oh, I have something at work today. You two eat lunch, I'll eat at work." He was stuffing a boiled egg into his mouth, the eggshells still scattered all over the table. He'd always been like this. There was a trash can right next to the table, and fruit peels and shells, but he'd still leave them on the table for Eleanor to clean up. It wasn't that she hadn't protested, but he'd always self-righteously dismissed her. "I'm restricted at work. If I have to be careful at home too, how can I live? Isn't this what you do at home?" So Eleanor gradually fell silent, like a rag in his hand. Through constant grinding and trying to please, she lost her original texture, becoming dull and weak. Financial power dictates family dynamics. This statement is absolutely true. Richard, with his successful career, was supreme at home, holding absolute authority, while Eleanor, who had quit her job early for the family, could only be bogged down by housework, decades of tireless work, and in the end, still suffer neglect and betrayal from her spouse. It was truly enough. I think I knew what I needed to do. My mother had become weak. If I, as her daughter, also chose to be weak and let Richard do as he pleased, Eleanor would truly have no hope. "Jerk," I blurted out. Both my parents looked at me simultaneously. My mother's eyes were astonished, while Richard showed panic. "Guess what I found yesterday?" Under their gaze, I slowly picked up Max, petting the cat, and said, "I found out yesterday that our Max not only hooked up with other stray cats but also had kittens with them outside. Don't you think that makes him a jerk?" After speaking, I looked at Richard expressionlessly. His eyes widened, and he lowered his head to drink his porridge. "Cheating on a legitimate partner is immoral, don't you think, Dad?" I looked him straight in the eye. "What's the big deal? Max is a male cat, just biological male instinct, you know." His tone was indifferent, yet full of self-righteousness. "In any case, I won't allow such things in our home. Tomorrow, I'm taking her to be neutered. Some things need to be cut off decisively." I deliberately emphasized the last 4 words. He didn't say anything more, got up, dressed, and left after muttering, "I'm going to work." Mom looked at me, as if she wanted to say something, but ultimately swallowed it back. She started cleaning the dishes and cutlery, heading into the kitchen to wash them. I followed, helping out, and cautiously probed. Mom, do you think Richard might be messing around outside? Mom, with her head down washing dishes, stopped at my words, remained silent for a moment, then said, Your dad is a man of standing, he wouldn't do anything like that. I couldn't respond, so I just kept quiet. There was a black stain on the bottom of the pot. Eleanor scrubbed at it with a scrubber as if possessed, but no matter how hard she scrubbed, the stain wouldn't budge. Watching her, a chill ran through me. Yes, the situation was so obvious that even I, her daughter, had discovered it. How could Eleanor not know? But even if she knew, what could she do? The problem was right there, she couldn't solve it or get rid of it. So she could only struggle with these pots and pans, struggle with herself. And Richard dared to be so audacious precisely because he was banking on her being a mere housewife who couldn't do anything to him. Thinking of this, I felt incredibly frustrated. I picked up the pot and threw it aside. Stop washing. It's just a pot. We don't have to use it. But Eleanor stubbornly picked it back up, wiped it dry, and put it back in the cabinet. All right, I understand. I turned and went to the bedroom to grab some clothes. Mom, I'm going to take clothes to Ethan and bring Richard back. We'll have lunch as a family. He sniffed. It's not really our place to interfere in adult matters. Besides, what if Dad gets angry and everything blows up? It was Ethan, my twin brother, speaking. After graduating from college, he'd moved out and rented an apartment with friends. I told him the whole story, but he clearly disagreed with my plan. If we both go, it's at least a strong statement to make him admit his mistake and come home to live properly with Mom. But from a man's perspective, this wasn't a good idea. Another no. I instantly lost it. Then what do you suggest we do? Just watch Mom suffer in silence? Have you thought about how heartbroken she'd be if she knew we were also feigning ignorance and turning a blind eye? Ethan, Mom worked so hard to raise you. She didn't raise you to be just for show. Stepping out the door, I felt completely disheartened. This must be the gender difference. Even between mother and son, it ultimately couldn't overcome the fact that he was first and foremost a man, and men only empathize with other men. I took a cab directly to that neighborhood. After adjusting my mood downstairs, I called Richard. According to the plan, I would call him down, appeal to his emotions and reason with him. And then he would admit his mistake and go home to live properly with Eleanor. It wouldn't be easy, but I believed that if he truly wanted to change, the mistress and child situation could be worked out. But I didn't expect him to not answer his phone at all. I angrily hung up the phone. Since you won't answer, there's nothing else for it. I went straight upstairs and pounded on the door. The woman who opened the door was in her 30s, with long hair and a pointed chin. Her skin had the unique pale softness of a woman who had just given birth. She was startled to see me, then smiled with surprise. Chloe, come in quickly. I coldly walked past her and stepped inside. The first thing I saw was a family photo hanging on the wall. In the picture, the woman was holding the child, and Richard was holding the woman, a standard family of 3. I scoffed. How ridiculous. Not only was he cheating, but he took a family photo and displayed it so prominently. Was he trying to make it more obvious? Her smile didn't diminish at all. She calmly called out to the bedroom, and a woman came out holding a child, along with a nanny. After instructing the nanny to wash fruit, she took the child and sat on the sofa, warmly greeting me. Hey, don't just stand there. Sit down and have some water. I ignored her. After surveying the living room, my heart felt constricted and heavy. Everything in this home, the food, the decorations, the things they used, was pleasing to the eye, and clearly not cheap. Yet Eleanor, suffering from tendinitis, wanted to install a dishwasher, but he kept saying it was too expensive. The nanny brought the fruit to the table and slipped back into the bedroom. Don't be shy, your dad bought all of this. It's really sweet. She pushed the plate of cherries towards me. The jade bracelet on her extended wrist was of excellent quality, the kind Eleanor always wanted to buy at the mall but never could bring herself to. Sit and wait. Your dad went out to pick something up. He said it's live king crab flown in from Chile. I told him it was too expensive, but your dad insisted it tasted good, and wanted me to try it. What kind of crab can I eat, having just passed my baby's milestone party? She finished and laughed. I also laughed. A mistress spending my family's money, then coming to show off to me. If I didn't show her who's boss, she might not know why flowers are red. I cleared my throat and began. Sister, you look familiar. Have we met before? She paused, and seeing me amicable, her smile widened. Possibly. I'm the new training manager. My office is next to your dad's. Oh, you're the new training manager? I thought you worked at an art gallery. So many murals. She was still chuckling, then her face turned cold as she realized. Watch what you say. You need to watch what you say. Did you? Don't you know Richard has a family? Aren't you ashamed? She took a deep breath, clearly suppressing her anger. Don't think I don't know what you're trying to do. That breast pump, you sent it to our house, didn't you? Stirring up trouble so obviously, trying to provoke Richard and his wife into divorce? I'm telling you, Richard's wife will never divorce him. Give it up. She dropped her smile, grinding her teeth. You don't make the decisions. It's up to your dad, isn't it? Leo. She poked the baby's face in her arms. I scoffed, crossing my arms. Having a child and taking a family photo. That doesn't make you not a mistress. Let me tell you, Richard and Eleanor are the legitimate married couple. As long as they're not divorced, you'll be a mistress. And as long as they're never divorced, he'll be a child outside of marriage, forever unable to hold his head high. Get out. This isn't your place to make a scene. She was furious, stood up and pointed at the door, yelling at me. The child, startled, began to cry. I stepped forward. I'll get out. With your salary, can you afford to live in this neighborhood? Can you buy all this? You're the one who should get out. Eleanor is generous, but I am not. Now that I know about this, I will see it through to the end. Get lost, or I'll make you regret giving birth to him. I mean what I say. Her eyes shifted, and her demeanor instantly softened, followed by tears. I don't want to break up your family either, but love is fate. You can't control it. With that, she lowered her head, pressed it against the baby's face, and began to sob softly. I felt strange, and turning around, sure enough, Richard was standing at the door. I turned and looked coldly at Richard. He must have just returned. He didn't even bother to close the door, putting the styrofoam cooler he was holding by the entrance and quickly walking over. What's going on? The woman sobbed a few times, looking wronged. I raised my chin. I want to ask too, Dad. What's the situation here? If it weren't in front of 3 people, I would have really wanted to grab his ear and ask him loudly. Are outside women exotic flowers and plants that should be nourished with gourmet food, while Eleanor is just a radish top, only fit to be soaked in cold water? From the box came the scratching sounds of a hard object against foam, a grating noise that made one uncomfortable. His face changed several times, then he finally spoke. Chloe, you go home first. We can talk about this at home. Why talk at home? Isn't it better to make things clear now that everyone's here? The woman looked at Richard, whose face was grim. Enough. We'll talk about this at home. Don't embarrass yourself outside. He suddenly roared. I didn't back down. So you know it's embarrassing, do you? He slapped me, making me shut up. I covered the stinging pain on my face, looking at his furious expression, seeing through his deepest selfishness and coldness. My heart suddenly turned cold, and all emotions of disappointment, grievance, and expectation vanished as if drained away. Suddenly, a loud crash came from behind me. Glass shards scattered everywhere, and the baby cried again. Richard looked at the person at the door, his expression changing from anger to panic. I turned around and saw Ethan standing at the door, looking like he wanted to kill someone. The beautiful vase by the door was gone. Ethan stepped in front of me. How dare you hit my sister? You're the one who wronged Eleanor. Is it so hard to admit you're wrong? Kids shouldn't interfere in adult matters, he said bitterly. I don't care about other things, but if Eleanor or my sister are wronged, I will never let him off the hook. My brother gritted his teeth and shot back. Richard's mouth twitched a few times. He remained silent, his face dark. The woman was unwilling to give up. Richard, are you just going to let them smash things? Didn't you see Leo crying from fright? After the woman spoke, my brother glanced at her, walked over, picked up the plate of cherries, and threw it at the family photo. Thud. Another pile of shattered pieces. The woman, startled, quickly protected the baby. Richard stared at my face, his expression so dark it looked like water could be squeezed from it. I gave him a "you handle it" look and pulled Ethan to walk out. Wait, the woman said, her expression twisted with rage. She grabbed her phone and pointed at us. You two are provoking trouble. I'm calling the police. Ethan stood still. Call them. Call them now. If you don't call, you're a coward. Ultimately, Richard pressed down on the woman's phone, preventing her from calling the police. Stepping out over the shattered glass, I felt incredibly comfortable. I gave Ethan a thumbs up. Seeing his cold, silent face, I leaned in and teased him mockingly. What if Dad gets angry and everything blows up? He didn't smile, still looking gloomy. What's wrong? He hesitated for a long time, then blurted out as if giving up. He's been cheating for a long time. The year after we took our college entrance exams, when you and Mom went on a trip, I found him bringing another woman home. After a brief silence, he added, "Not this one." My heart was violently struck. The home I had stubbornly tried to protect silently collapsed. Looking back, Eleanor's constantly furrowed brows and the unhappiness written on her face over the years all made sense now. When that dog of a man returned home, the roasted ribs on the table were steaming. Mom brought out dishes and cutlery and told us to wash our hands for dinner. Her smile was the same as always, but thinking of all the hidden endurance beneath that smile, I felt a knot in my stomach. I sighed and silently began eating the roasted ribs. Halfway through the meal, Richard returned. He entered with a dark face and immediately started yelling, accusing us of causing trouble at someone else's house and accusing Eleanor of instigating me. Eleanor couldn't stand it and started arguing with him. They're grown up, they know everything. Do they still need me to teach them? I can't even bring myself to talk about the things you've done. What have I done? You only remember those things. Why don't you remember how hard I worked to support this family? Why don't you remember how I supported you for half your life? His arrogance flared, spouting nonsense self-righteously. I'm making myself clear today. There are many such things outside. It's not unheard of for people to divorce and remarry. I haven't divorced you, and you don't have to earn money to support the family, so why can't you just turn a blind eye? Eleanor's eyes reddened with anger. Before she could even speak, tears streamed down. You have a home outside your home, and you want her to turn a blind eye? Eleanor dedicated her first 20 years to this family. Do you want her to continue enduring in silence for the next 20 years? Does she owe you something? Ethan and I stood up almost simultaneously to refute him. He didn't hide the sarcasm in his tone. What has she contributed to this family? A housewife, doing some chores and raising kids. That's what you call a contribution? This whole family, including you two, is supported by me. You have no right to talk back. These words, like a weighing scale, didn't diminish Eleanor but instead highlighted her strength and resilience. Yes, you earn the money for the household, but a home isn't just about money. Food doesn't cook itself, and clothes don't automatically wash and fold themselves. Eleanor managed everything in this home perfectly, from everyone's daily living and eating to my grandfather's passing, and then Martha's hospital stay and surgery. This thoughtfulness is something no amount of money can buy. Furthermore, if she hadn't voluntarily quit her job and taken on family responsibilities, you wouldn't have been able to pursue your career without any worries. If she hadn't worked tirelessly for this family, you wouldn't have had a home to support. It's a joint effort. The one who earns the money isn't the one with the biggest contribution, and the one who takes care of the home isn't inferior. Even the law recognizes the labor value of a housewife. You have no right to speak to Eleanor like that. After I spoke, Eleanor suddenly looked up at me. There were still tears in her eyes, but her gaze was strikingly bright. Seeing him still unyielding, I couldn't resist adding, "You really don't need to think so highly of yourself. It's 2025 now. The standard for evaluating a man's success has long changed. Someone with poor personal ethics and no sense of family responsibility, no matter how successful their career, will be scorned." He suddenly raised his hand. I defiantly lifted my face. "What, do you want to hit me again?" His face flushed, then paled, his lips trembling. He didn't speak for a long time, then turned, grunted at Eleanor, slammed the door and left. Eleanor got up and went into the bedroom. I followed her in. She sat on the edge of the bed, and tears began to fall. Mom, through her tears, recounted the bitterness of those years. She talked about his playing dumb, about that woman coming to their home to provoke them when she was newly pregnant, and how she had thought about divorce more than once. But after years of building their life together, she couldn't bear to see the family fall apart like that. A more important reason was that she was already over 50. How would she live if she divorced? "Mom," I looked at her with determination. "Actually, women don't have to endure silently their whole lives. Times have changed, you can live a different way. Even if you divorce, don't be afraid. Ethan and I will take care of you, and you'll get half of the family assets." She thoughtfully asked me, "Was what you said about the law recognizing the labor value of a housewife true?" I nodded. The new civil code stipulates that if one married couple assumes more obligations in raising children, caring for the elderly, or assisting the other spouse's work, they have the right to request compensation from the other party upon divorce. The other party should provide compensation. She relaxed, picked up her phone, and hatred gleamed in her eyes. I'm going to throw the word divorce in his face right now and tell him how miserable I've been all these years. No rush, I stopped her. When it comes to divorce, Interests far outweigh emotions. I've already seen his selfishness and coldness, so before sounding the divorce horn, I need to be fully prepared. First, to ensure Eleanor's rightful property won't be artificially reduced. Second, abandoning someone after an affair is the ultimate betrayal. There should be a lesson learned. Even if it's Richard. He was gone for 2 weeks. Where he went during those 2 weeks was self-evident. During my lunch break, I consulted with a lawyer. The lawyer told me that in cases like ours, where Richard completely controlled the finances, Eleanor could apply to the court for an asset freeze before the divorce. This would effectively prevent marital assets from being hidden or transferred. Applying for an asset freeze required a whole procedure. First, we needed evidence to prove that the other party was maliciously concealing or transferring marital assets, and also documents to prove the family assets, such as property deeds, the other party's bank account numbers, etc. Once everything was ready, I could hand it over to him, and he would help me with the process. I still couldn't make up my mind and said hesitantly, "I'll think about it." Just then, my phone received a WhatsApp message from my cousin Sophie. "Sis, I saw this from Uncle Gerald. What's going on? That person is Kyle." The photo below the message was in a restaurant, with Richard and the mistress smiling and holding the child. The background wall behind the main seats was decorated with balloons, and in the middle, 3 sparkling words read "Baby's Milestone Party," with a large table full of people. Enlarging the photo, I saw Martha, my other uncles, and Uncle Gerald prominently among them. A wave of cold disgust swept through me. This jerk and mistress were openly holding a baby's milestone party. Did they think Eleanor was dead? How twisted their values are that the whole family could eat that meal, especially Martha. And to think Eleanor had served her constantly when she had surgery. No wonder Richard was acting like a jerk, and doing so self-righteously. The problem started right from the top. I didn't reply to my cousin. I quietly saved the photo and looked up at the lawyer saying, "I'll gather the documents and contact you." The lawyer had other commitments and left shortly. I opened Uncle Gerald's moments and didn't see that photo. It seemed he had blocked me. Last year, Uncle Gerald needed my cousin's help with something, and I was the one who introduced them. Now he remembered to block me but forgot about my cousin. I sat alone in the coffee shop and told my cousin the whole story on WhatsApp. She was furious and cursed with me for half an hour. "This is bigamy. Sue them." My cousin had a quick temper. If she hadn't been so busy with work these past few days, she would have dragged me to the restaurant right away to make a scene. I, too, wished I could, but the elements of bigamy required them publicly presenting themselves as a married couple, or living together as if married. Finding such evidence was too difficult. I helplessly replied with a string of ellipses, and casually scrolled through my cousin's moments. My cousin worked in community property management. When I saw her posting about her daily work, a flash of inspiration hit me. Perhaps my cousin could really help me. The next day, I organized Richard's bank cards and stock accounts, and with the lawyer, accompanied Eleanor to the court to apply for an asset freeze. After completing all the procedures according to the process, the court issued a preservation ruling, freezing all of Richard's personal accounts. Then Eleanor filed a lawsuit in court for bigamy and requested a divorce. Richard's annual salary was only about $1 million, and the community's assessment was that his family didn't save much. But after the court issued a court order for investigation, the lawyer discovered during the investigation that in addition to his house and cars, the total amount in his accounts was almost $10 million, and the apartment the mistress lived in had been secretly bought by Richard after she became pregnant, without Eleanor knowing. On the day of the trial, Richard, as expected, tried every trick in the book, admitting to infidelity but denying bigamy. I wasn't surprised by this at all. After exchanging glances, the lawyer presented the enlarged, printed photo of the baby's milestone party, as well as a community work registration form. Previously, the community had conducted a door-to-door resident survey of all residents, and that neighborhood happened to be within the work scope of my cousin's unit. With my cousin's help, I obtained a copy of this form. On this registration form, filled out by the resident themselves, the family members and relationships section clearly stated, married couple. This became indirect proof of their publicly presenting themselves as a married couple, coupled with evidence such as having a child outside of marriage, and openly holding a baby celebration. Their bigamy was proven beyond a doubt. And bigamy leads to jail time. This Miss Tiffany, the mistress, must never have imagined that one day her subtly flaunted relationship would land her in jail. Richard's face was ashen, his domineering demeanor completely gone. He tried to reach for Eleanor, but Eleanor politely dodged him. The divorce judgment was rendered immediately in court. Considering Eleanor's years of sacrifice and Richard's egregious behavior of common-law marriage with another, the property distribution was adjusted proportionally. Eleanor received the house and $6.5 million in assets, while the apartment the mistress lived in, and the remaining $3.5 million in assets were awarded to Richard. The divorce was clean and swift, but the troubles were not over. The next day Martha, along with several uncles, showed up at our door, chastising Eleanor for being heartless and pressuring her to withdraw the bigamy lawsuit against Richard. Martha even threw a dramatic tantrum, wiping tears and escalating the moral blackmail to the extreme, sometimes saying Eleanor shouldn't treat her husband this way, and other times saying Eleanor hadn't fulfilled her duties as a woman, which was why the family broke up. At first, Eleanor tried to communicate, but then she realized they were just there to make a scene, and finally lost her patience. "Now you know I'm your daughter-in-law? When your son was acting like a jerk, why didn't you control him?" Eleanor pointed at the door, gritting her teeth as she spoke to Martha. "His going to jail is his own doing. The divorce is final. This is my home now. If you keep making trouble, I can't guarantee I won't send a few more people to jail. Try me." Seeing Eleanor getting serious, the uncles indifferently said a few words and slipped away. Martha, seeing her supporters leave, instantly lost half her momentum. She cursed at the top of her lungs, pointing everywhere, then left. Divorce is hurtful after all. With their scene, Eleanor's underlying sadness finally broke through, and tears streamed down. I comforted her. "Don't listen to Martha talking nonsense. You've done everything you could all these years. He's the ungrateful one, making one mistake after another. Your life is your own. You don't have to sacrifice it for him your whole life." The case was concluded, and Richard and the mistress Tiffany were sentenced to 1 year in prison. During this time, Eleanor considered withdrawing the lawsuit, worried about how a criminal record might affect my brother and me, but after discussing it with my brother, we both felt that betrayal should come with consequences, and there's a limit to forgiveness. Kindness is reserved for moral people. Some people don't deserve it. To help Mom adjust to life after the divorce, I enrolled her in a community college for seniors, choosing subjects she was interested in, and also took her to get a new hairstyle and buy many new clothes. Now she has no worries, in control of her finances, and has completely revitalized, smiling every day and marveling at how leisurely and wonderful life could be. Of course, some people tried to set up on dates for Eleanor, but she refused them all. She said she only wanted to enjoy her life from now on, living only for herself. Although the 1-year sentence was short, it was enough to change some things. After being released from prison, Richard and Tiffany got married, but he lost his work because of it and was no longer a hot commodity. So they weren't happy and were constantly fighting. I heard about this from my other uncles and wasn't surprised. Life is full of trivialities, and what's more, Richard, having lost his executive status, was just an ordinary old man with no competitiveness in the workplace. Without a steady income, he could only try to save, and in life he was hands-off and bad-tempered. It would be a miracle if they didn't fight. Later, I heard that the mistress left with the child in less than 6 months. A few months later, at Thanksgiving, Richard showed up with gifts, trying to be sentimental in front of Eleanor, talking about family and reunion. His intention was obvious. He wanted to coax Eleanor into getting back together with him. Eleanor politely kept her distance, subtly arguing with him in her words, and finally, annoyed beyond measure, rolled her eyes and said, "Bigamy is a serious offense that leads to jail time. Haven't you learned your lesson yet?"